Hello, welcome to Connie Martinson Talks Books. Well, today we're going to talk about, almost like Robert Frost would say, two roads diverge in a yellow wood. I took the one. Well, my guest today, Harlan Steinbaum, has written Tough Calls from the Corner Office. Top business leaders revealed their career-defining moments. It's published by Harper Business. Welcome, Harlan.
Thank you.
And what a fascinating group, 39 men and women that you have interviewed, but in a way asked what makes you tick. How did you get there?
Right.
Where did you decide to sort of ask these questions?
Well, you know, I interviewed 39 CEOs or business executives from around the country. And in interviewing them, I found that their stories were compelling. They were absolutely fascinating. Mm-hmm. And I therefore decided to write my book, Tough Calls from the Corner Office. These people, these are stories from the top. These are not classroom or theoretical lessons that these people are expressing in the book. And I've tried to bring them to the reading public so they could enjoy it, but without having the hard knocks. Yeah. It's sort of like having a front row seat to their experiences.
What's interesting is how you set it up, that you would give almost a little précis of the person's background, and then they would take over with their words.
Right.
But I have to tell our friends in the audience, your background, how you happened to retire to do this.
Well, you know, when I was a CEO, I literally made thousands of decisions. But there's one single decision that stood out in my mind above all the rest, and I call it my defining moment, the most important decision I ever made. We were a family business that was growing rapidly. And in order to support our growth plan, we started to look for ways to finance that growth. One way was to go public. And while we were considering their options, we were approached by Pet Incorporated, a New York Stock Exchange conglomerate, that made us a proposal. And it really seemed like a dream come true because they could provide the resources so we could implement our growth plan. And then we would have an opportunity to really grow into a national chain. And from that vantage point, and I became a group president of PET and was responsible for 6 out of their 17 operating divisions. And from that vantage point, I had an opportunity to look at their management up close and found that that they really managed problems as opposed to solving them. They were very risk adverse. Mm-hmm. So my partners and I felt that we were best off trying to implement our growth plan by ourselves, and therefore that became my defining moment.
Yeah. How many years were you under the PET umbrella?
3.
3. Uh-huh.
And it was a wonderful learning experience.
Yeah.
They were very professionally managed, and I learned a lot from that experience that I was able to take into our company that we reacquired.
When you buy back a company that you have sold, are you able to buy it at a lower price?
No. We had a very tough negotiation with Pet. And they had invested a lot of money in our company. Mm-hmm. So we had to not only pay them what they paid us, but we had to pay them back all the money that they had invested in its growth.
I have to tell our friends in the audience, and I said I would do a disclaimer, but I have owned Express Script. And although you founded it, you are not connected with it at the moment.
Right. I was one of the founders of Express Scripts. And it's a wonderful company. And I mean, I could tell you how it got started or how it got its name if we have time.
All right. Let me just say also in this book is the man who had worked with you at PET, who owned Whitman Chocolates.
Yes.
And his story and how he ended up back in. He says something great. When a company asks you to move, if you say no twice, figure you're never moving out of wherever that city is.
Exactly right. And that's the mentality of the larger companies. You really have to be there when they need you. Yeah. And if you turn down a move more than once or twice, figure you're going to stay where you are for the rest of your career.
Interesting man too, Jim Speed, who had been, he was a CPA.
Right.
And he goes with Deloitte Touche. He happens to be an African American, and even took off 2 years to be with his daughter who was in high school.
very unusual man.
Yeah.
He's a man who became a CPA, went to little-known schools, and he was looking to get a job as a chief financial officer in a company. But having gone to those schools, he felt he needed to do more in order to gain the respect that he would need in order to move forward. So he went to work for Tooch Ross, or Tooch Duluth actually, and stayed with them for 12 years, did a magnificent job, and just really moved up the ladder, and financially was in a position where he could take 2 years off and spend those times with his daughter, and he said that was the most productive time of his life.
Yeah. Then he comes back, and where is he working now?
North Carolina National Life Insurance Company. He's the CEO, president and CEO. And he's just a very unusual man and a very fine, astute businessman.
Yeah. Interesting woman who's the head of Ogilvy and Mather.
Yes.
And she goes there, and this is an era when, almost like if you watch Mad Men, it was not an era of women rising in the corporation. There was something very thick called the glass ceiling. And she decides to go into the Ogilvy direct marketing.
Right. Well, again, she's an extremely unusual executive.
Dolly Lazarus?
Shelley Lazarus.
Shelley Lazarus.
She's probably one of the brightest women I've ever met, and a very astute business person who could hold her own anywhere. And Shelley went to work at Ogilvy Direct. It was sort of like a stepchild of the advertising agency. But she had some ideas that she felt could really bring that company on strong, and she did it.
And it's interesting because direct marketing is really the godfather of infomercials.
That's right.
And it has, with technology, that's hotter than, putting an ad in the paper.
She put all of the different groups together, advertising, public relations, and direct marketing, so she could provide a full range of services to their customers all over the world. And that helped them get customers in all parts of the world.
Yeah.
She's a brilliant
Of course,
executive.
now she is the CEO.
Well, now, just recently, she became chairman only. She gave up the role of CEO, but she's still very active, and she's still very important in running that business.
Part of this business, too, is who took the chance? Who said, I'm successful, but I want more?
A number of people did that. Some were successful, some were not. One of the real success stories is Monsanto, a man by the name of Dick Mahoney, who, when he took over, he felt that that company was a little bit in jeopardy because they were in the petrochemical business, and the oil companies were starting to use their own feedstock, and their profitability went down. He totally remade that company. He went into life sciences, he went into agriculture, he went into pharmaceuticals, and in my opinion, resided over the greatest transformation of a company in the history of American business.
Yeah.